So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thank you for being here tonight. It's a Saturday night show where everybody would soon rather be, I'm sure, cleaning their parakeet cage or balancing their checkbook or cleaning their fish tank. But we're on tonight with a number of great individuals here, and we may be visited by more, because tonight's show is an SHR Media special report, and it's about the ice shooting in Minneapolis. Looks like I have to turn down my mic just a bit. It's a little hot. In any event, tonight we have Jersey Joe from SHR, and we also have Stephen Hall from KLRN. And we have a lot of articles and a lot of videos about what happened today in Minneapolis, probably what's going to go on in the future. The thing that we earlier prognosticated has apparently or will end up to be true. And so, BZ, what is it that you're saying about that? Well, anyway, before we go, everybody primarily knows who I am. And I want to reintroduce Jersey Joe, he of SHR and the Reaver of Common Sense, because if there is, in fact, common sense with which to be riven, did I get that right? I think maybe I did. It is Jersey Joe who will be doing the reaving. So, Jersey Joe, tell us about your show, where it can be found, et al., et cetera, et cetera.
You can find it right here on shrmedia.com and any of our social media every Monday and Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that's what 12 p.m. Or
yes,
no, 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
Pacific Standard Time. I added instead of subtracted, and I carried the one and divided by 2.
I know, and you forgot to look at page 60, because in Group Cluster 5, under the 4th drawer, under the Eastern Redback Rattlesnake, it'll tell you where you are. So, did I get the rattlesnake wrong? Stephen, what? It's an ice. Speaking of ice, you said ice. I said ice. Somebody said ice. Somebody said ice. And I want to tell you, people, folks don't believe me, but this is my mug. And anybody who knows me knows that there's a certain particular material, which happens to be wet, in here that normally I pull it out about a half hour before or so, but I pulled it out. I keep my vodka.
That's what she said.
In the freezer. And I want to tell you right now, there is nothing like ice cold vodka to start an SHR Media special report. So, Skull Brothers. And also, down below, we have Stephen L. Hall, who is first and new to this show in terms of, I kept telling him, Steve, I would love to get you back on the show. Well, actually, to be honest, I'd rather get you on the show in the first place. And our attorneys have been talking together. My attorney has been talking to your attorney, and then they went out to lunch. They had a bad lunch, and then they had the wrong lobster bisque. And then the contract is about 40 pages now. It keeps getting added, but sooner or later, I'm going to have you on the show to just talk about generic stuff. But primarily, because you haven't been here before, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and how you're aligned with radio and or KLRN. Stephen L. Hall, please.
Okay. Well, those lawyers are prolific in their verbosity, so that is understandable. I have a show on KLRN, just fairly new. It's called Inquiry. It's on every other Wednesday at 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And BZ has been gracious enough to come on the host to be guest interrogator before. So I'm trying to return the favor, and hopefully my mic works this time, because we've had problems with that before. Background, I used to be an attorney once upon a time. I've been cured of that. That was more than a decade ago. I think that's pretty much it. I'm on Twitter at Stephen L. Hall. It's a very anonymous account.
And you also have a show called Inquisition?
Inquisition. What a show. Sorry.
Inquiry. No one survives a Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah, we try to do kind of a one-topic show so we can actually go a little bit more in depth. And I get to answer questions that are posed to me. So I don't know the topic beforehand.
It's actually kind of fun. I've been in there twice. He had no idea what questions I was going to ask. So that's why I enjoyed it, because he could end up there. Well, you have to stay within a certain framework. But in any event, enjoyed it. And thank you for being here. I may be on it next week, depending on whether your customary co-host can be here or not. In any event, we're here to talk tonight about the Minneapolis ICE shooting, which occurred. And what I'd like to do is weigh in a little bit and make what I term a big, beautiful soliloquy in terms of starting the show. And then when I'm done, Jersey Joe, if you have anything that you'd like to begin the show with, and then of course Stephen Hall. But I want to go back to the foundational precepts upon which all this stuff is built, because this ridiculous, outrageous, unnecessarily and entirely avoidable violence could have been stemmed literally decades ago. But no, Democrats decided that they were going to embrace their sanctuary states and cities and towns and counties in order to make a virtue signaling statement, which kind of sort of didn't make a whole lot of sense way back when, but they were doing it just because they could in contravention of federal law. So the feds and ICE and CBP were left pretty much with no options, especially now. Why now in particular? I will get to that. So instead of being able to go into secure facilities and jails and prisons all around the country and snatch and nab illegal invader criminals and illegal invaders themselves out of those secure facilities, federal agents were then thusly forced onto the streets and the buildings in the areas where obviously illegal invaders can be found. Now, that's exactly the opposite of what Democrats and leftists want. But in truth, they actually want it both ways. They don't want illegal invaders turned over to federal agents in secure jail facilities. And they don't want illegal invaders captured on the street. So within the recent minimum of, I don't know, with the addition of, some people say, I mean, if you guys have heard any additional, more accurate numbers than this, with the recent minimum, I believe, of 10 million, some people have said up to 20 million, and potentially more illegal invaders who were simply allowed to walk through our borders under Biden in the past 46 years. And okay, I'm sorry. Maybe they were abused they got their ankles moist in the Rio Grande at most. So Democrats vastly ended up increasing the chances of violent interactions between federal agents and ICE and CBP because the numbers of illegal invaders just skyrocketed exponentially. So Honda Pilot driver and gun leftist made sure that their, what are, I believe, aptly termed insanely suicidal empathy was only applicable to illegal invaders and criminals and dope dealers. They only had suicidal empathy for dope dealers and murderers and rapists and sodomists and drug dealers and human traffickers and those kind of people. But it wasn't actually applicable to the people who were the victims of illegal invaders or to actual Americans. So let's back up a little bit because I want to remind everybody of this. What happened to the original leftist bleat about, say, firearms? If we only save one life, is it worth it to confiscate every gun in America? And all the leftists and Democrats would have said, absolutely, hell to the yeah, you bet. I repeat, I've said this before any number of times. I am proven true damn near every day, certainly today as well. Democrats and leftists could not care less how many bodies of actual Americans have to be stacked, packed, racked with rivers of blood flowing into urban gutters in order to be in keeping with their great anarcho-leftist philosophies. They couldn't care less. That, by the way, as you've seen, that includes their own and illegal invaders as well. Worse yet, Democrats and leftists insist on keeping those violent flames fanned and fed. Got some great videos to show you, to be heard by what they're doing is continuously jacking up the populace in various towns by way of those self-same officials who, until kind of a little bit recently, were verbally calling for essentially outright war on ICE agents. And these weren't protests that were naturally created or spontaneous or organic. They were planned and organized and attended by professional anarchists of all shapes, sizes, and age ranges. A good deal by idiot leftist white chicks and older people who embarrass me and should know better. You know, predominantly the unemployed, unless you're, I guess, a paid anarchist. So with regard to the gun leftist, how was it that Governor Tampon Tim Retard Waltz managed to know? This was one of the first questions that I asked myself after I watched his press conference. And would it shock you to believe that I actually have his press conference to play for you? Why, no, it shouldn't shock you. How did he find out so quickly that the guy involved was a legal resident and a permit or a gun permit holder? Plus, you know, again, besides the foundational aspects of sanctuary cities, and if we can't agree on that, then predominantly we have nothing with which to agree. Why would you carry a firearm into a volatile situation, not have your ID or your permit card on your person when it is that where it is that you know exactly where you're going and for what reason? More importantly, if you would try to provide some kind of a rationale for me for carrying a gun into an environment where every Minnesota and Minneapolis official, from the governor on down and Democrats across the country, have continuously insisted, well, you know, these aren't riots. They're just mostly peaceful protests, right? So why would you bring intentionally a firearm to a peaceful protest, conspicuously leaving out all those things I mentioned before? If the protest you knowingly entered was nothing more than, it was going to be peaceful, it was going to be so serene, we all know the answer to that. It's not tough to suss out. The issue that the firearm, and here comes, you know, rationale number 523. The issue that the firearm was lawfully purchased is completely and entirely irrelevant to the circumstances. It's not even remotely any kind of a factor. This was a situation where an individual tried to interfere with ICE and made the rather stupid mistake of being armed in that process. Why would you do that? And in one of the videos, you'll hear it a little bit later, you can hear one of the agents or a couple of the agents yell, "Gun, gun, gun." Well, they don't do that just because I wasn't doing anything else at the time.
Easy, let's back it up a little bit. He also attacked a woman that started it all.
That was prior to that, and would it shock you?
He's innocent. He's in it. He didn't do anything. He only attacked a woman.
No, of course not. So there was absolutely no reason for ICE to interfere or get involved whatsoever.
I love people. He's unarmed. He had a fucking weapon, you morons.
Well, and we'll get to that.
Oh my God, too. He's unarmed. He only had a handgun on him.
Because if I'm not mistaken, Democrats, leftists, Waltz, Fry, the Minneapolis chief, I can't even think of the guy's name, O'Hara, O'Regan, bit of shit, whatever the guy's name is. So what you do have to factor in, however, is that after being targets of serious violence for months on end now, what kind of stepping down, if you're an ICE agent, are you going to consider applying first when ICE agents in Dallas were sniped, 2 illegal invaders were killed? Now that's where I also say Democrats and leftists couldn't care less who gets killed behind the altar of their philosophies. Well, if a couple of illegal invaders themselves get killed, NBD, no biggie. So, and I'll show you the video of it and the photos. An ICE agent got his finger bitten off. A National Guardsman, 2 National Guardsmen were shot. One was killed in another incident. And of course, Honda pilot driver injuring another agent who had previously been dragged 300 feet by another suspect. So, again, I say, for what purpose, considering all of these variables, do you think for a person interfering with ICE, what rationale, what purpose would there be to be in possession of a firearm during what's been shouted from the rooftops? Well, these are peaceful protests. Another BZ if then equation. If true, then why bring a firearm? Because they're peaceful. So why the gun? What might have happened had gun leftists been, I don't know, say, stayed his ass at home or been at work? That's right. Absolutely nothing.
If he would not have interfered with ICE, if he would not have attacked a woman, if he would have been a law-abiding, none of this would have happened. If the broad would not have tried to run a cop over, it wouldn't have happened. It all comes down to following the law. I keep hearing, oh, your crowd went from don't tread on me to bootlicker. No, don't tread on me doesn't mean that you attack law enforcement. Don't tread on me does not mean you ignore the law. Don't tread on me just means government, leave me alone when I'm being law abiding. I don't fuck with you. You don't fuck with me. It's that simple. Well, you had a attorney general. Sorry, let me just.
No problem.
You had an Arizona attorney general just the other day talking how people should arm themselves. And I know we'll get to that later.
Oh, God, yes.
Excited. This guy intentionally went to do this. He caused this issue. He caused his own death. And these assholes that are sitting there making excuses. I've seen the idiots on the internet. He was disarmed before he got shot. It was in his holster before he got shot. Make up your fucking mind. Which is it, you morons? Because you give so many different fucking excuses. The video shows he had a gun in his hand. You hear the officer scream, gun, gun, gun. What, you want to wait till officers get fucking shot before they react? Fuck you.
Don't ask that question, because the answer on many levels would be yes. So, Stephen Hall, what do you have, sir?
And sorry for
yes, they do want that. Now, see, they're trying to think that they're in a position that you had old protesters, and I saw a comment from a protester from like the 60s where you intentionally go out to get arrested, but they know they're going to get arrested. So the first thing happens when they're told to do that is they fully comply. They make sure they don't have weapons, because that's part of their plan. These people are not planning ahead. If you're planning on protesting to the point where you're going to get arrested, then you don't interfere with the people who are armed. You just trespass, something mild. And when they arrest you, you put your hands behind your back and go, yes, here, lead me away. And that's what the old protesters did. But that's not what they're telling these people to do. They're telling these people it's the end of civilization. You're fighting fascists. They don't even know what fascist is, but they're telling them they're fighting fascists and they're trying to save the democracy from
sorry about that.
These evil people who are enforcing the law.
Just so you know, I wasn't laughing at you. I actually paid attention to chat for a second. It's some dumbass is going, National Guard is no joke. ICE better watch out.
Right. I'm sure ICE is quivering in their pants.
These people are fucking morons.
If the National Guard is called in, they're under the command of the military.
Yeah, in a heartbeat, Trump can take control of them and take it away from walls. So I don't know what they're getting all excited for. You know,
the problem
and it keeps up. Trump's going to do an insurrection act, and he's going to send in the actual military in there.
I'm honestly surprised he hasn't already.
Say again?
I'm honestly surprised he hasn't already, because there've been more than enough excuse for that.
Yeah, I think he's trying to be patient and trying to get it to resolve without doing it.
I'm a little surprised, and yes, I can see the alternative view. What I said before about a lot of this is this results from failure of imagination. Honda Pilot driver had a failure to imagine that something bad could happen to her just because something bad had never happened to her before. Failure of imagination for gun leftists was, gosh, if I take a gun, I've probably told any number of people that I will be taking a gun to the protests and to the riots, but I have supreme confidence that really nothing will happen to me. The other question I have is this, because sometimes you need to step back and take sort of a more umbrella type view out of all of this. And that question goes back to, okay, of all the places where ICE is operating these days, to include Atlanta and Louisiana, who asked them to come in, by the way, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, Portland. Why is only Minneapolis insane? Minneapolis, I found out, statistically accounts for about 2% of all the illegal invaders to be scooped up.
It's like
Most of
23
them-
for Texas.
Yeah, most of them are in Texas. No shock. Hello. Yet, okay, so where are the Texas riots? The towns on the border like El Paso, why are they not exploding? Where are their protests and where are their riots? You know,
I
the
can
other thing
answer
is-
this because they keep also throwing Florida into it. Florida, we have a high number of deportations happening in this state.
well,
The difference is
it's a high FAFO state too.
FAFO.
Yeah,
I didn't get that one.
it's a high fuck around and find out state.
Yes. No, that's the thing. We are working with ICE. We are handing illegals over to ICE. We are not fighting ICE. We are not working with ICE. That is the difference. We are not instigating people to go out there and get in face of law enforcement. That won't work in Florida. Right? What Don Lime did with the church, or one of them, the sheriff next county over from me, Sheriff Grady. I love the man.
Oh,
He said they wouldn't have to worry because he would have arrested every single one of them the moment it happened.
Grady is
We don't
fabulous.
fuck around in Florida. We don't allow it. Texas doesn't allow it. We shut the shit down. If you want to protest, protest, but you're going to do it peacefully. We don't allow the shit that Tampon 10 is allowing to do. He's sitting there instigating people to get violent with these people. He's instigating people to interfere, obstruct law enforcement, all against the law. You can sit there and you can try to justify any way you want. They are instigating it. Democrats are instigating this. They allowed the border to be open. They flooded our country. And now they're upset that we're throwing the hell out because they broke the law.
Well, oddly enough, would it shock you? Thank God again that you're sitting down, that I will be eventually getting there. But there's a method to my madness, and which is why I am so glad that Stephen L. Hall came tonight. Because the next issue that I wanted to address in my BBS was, okay, states continuously believe that they're just going to wade in and take over federal investigations. In my belief, that's just not going to occur unless they, I don't know, go judge shopping and find another black-robed leftist anarcho-terrorist jurist who decides to exceed the scope of his or her authority. So, Stephen L. Hall, are there any reasons, and I pose this directly to you, right down there to you. And is there any reason why states should have authority over federal investigations, or states, the Fed should have authority over investigations like theft and robberies in various states? In other words, who has the authority to do what?
Unfortunately, over the last 50 years or so, it's gotten much more muddled than it was originally. Originally intended very simply that, and if you read, I think it's Federalist Paper number 17, is talking about how the states are primarily there to oversee the criminal law. Criminal law really is not a federal concern. Now, immigration law is a federal concern. That's not a state concern. So to the extent that you have a crime that's an immigration crime, that is clear within federal jurisdiction. If you have a theft or murder, things like that, those are typically left to the states. And there's a doctrine, it's a Lake Erie doctrine having to do with the courts, where the federal courts will apply state law because that supersedes, because that's an area that's outside the federal government. So the substantive law they have to apply in federal court if it's a state law. But what you have here is people trying to say that immigration laws don't matter. And part of this is normal cooperation. You get cooperation between the federal and the state governments, and you have to ask yourself, why are they not cooperating?
Exactly.
And I would say follow the money. When you have corruption permeating most of the state.
Excuse me while I Stephen L. Hall because of that point.
But, there are times when the state law is going to be more important than the federal law, but that's on a state issue. If it was a question of theft, then yeah, it's state law. Now we're running into a situation where you have embezzlement and fraud of federal funds. So embezzlement and fraud would normally be state. Federal funds becomes, a federal concern. But all the immigration stuff is federal. There's nothing the state should be involved in with that whatsoever. But the problem is they're like, yeah, we arrested him. We turned him loose. We don't know where he is. And they're actively interfering in the federal government. And that's a little different than the traditional concept of going, nope, our hands are clean. You want them, you'll get them. And that's when we're having problems. That's why they're sending these people out. And I think it's to cover their own keisters, because I think they're up to their waist in this muck, in the fraud, particularly with the Somali daycares and the Medicare. And they're just trying to divert attention from the investigations.
Would you not say that goes back to the original linculus of, you said follow the money. I said ding. I'll be mentioning that again in just a moment. Say again, Joe.
You said ding, and I went, fries are done.
Okay, yes, they are. No, my cake, my ancient birthday cake is done. But in terms of that, this could be seen as, I don't know, a deflection for all of that. We're seeing fraud and corruption and graft on such an unprecedented scale that I think a lot of people, they don't really have any kind of a hand or a grapple on this. That's one aspect. And it was discovered and found mostly within Minneapolis in Minnesota. And the people that are in charge, Waltz, Fry, particularly in Minneapolis, are doing their very level best to deflect. The other part of this that goes into the bigger, much, much larger overarching issue, and I can hardly see chat because it's so winky-dinky over there and down below. But I seem to have caught the eye of, or I've seen somebody who mentioned money also, just like yourself. And I say, customarily, let's go up a bunch of levels and let's look at the bigger picture. What's the point, if you step back, of all of this? As you said, Stephen Hall, the point is that Democrats are losing power.
Yep.
This is a power loss to the structure. And when you eject the illegal invader voting and population base on which they're seeking to increase votes and congressional seats for their states, then you kind of sort of begin to understand the palavering, foaming, rabies-like intensity and insanity displayed, because after all, like Frank Herbert said, you're interfering with the spice of money and control and power. And by Gaia, the spice must flow. So that's the all-encompassing circle around all of this. Gee, I feel like, Dr. Evil. Circle. Wait, Dr. Evil. Circle.
One of the things I noticed today, and it's a little bit off of what you were talking about, I'm seeing a lot of Democrat politicians posting about the shooting. And I've been trying to pay attention lately to the likes, comments, and they're posting this and they're getting like maybe 2,000 likes on it. And people that are opposing that idea are getting 30, 40,000 people. So people are looking at those comments and they're not supporting those comments. You have a very, very small fringe, lunatic fringe group that is supporting what is going on right now.
Like Blue Sky.
Right. And nobody
like Air America.
Nobody in their right mind would be backing the fraud that's going on, making excuses for the fraud. Well, Tim's been taking care of it for years. He's been prosecuting. He ain't been doing shit. No. All right. And the next big one we're going to see California blow back up with riots because they just announced $9 billion in fraud has been found.
Oh, Hello, Califailure.
You're going to see the riots happen there to try to distract, because that's partly what this is.
The tip.
I would say $9 billion is just a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, I don't doubt, but that's what they announced so far has been found. When we start looking more, and these people are so. We hate Trump. We hate Trump. We hate Trump. We don't care what else is going on. We hate Trump. We hate Trump. We hate Trump. And you're willing to burn the country down just because you don't like one man.
On top of that, I have to go to this because I'm not going to do any breaks tonight, but I will say something like this.
Right, you're listening to the SHR Media Network.
It's the voice of Gaia. Not really. You are listening to the SHR Media Network. I am BZ, and that is Jersey Joe. And tonight's special, also along with Stephen L. Hall, is an SHR Media special report, the ICE shooting in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Kind of a strange place. Half hour in, and I haven't even shown one video yet. There's an amazing amount of material to go over. But first, I have to put this up. Now, if you're watching in landscape, you'll be able to see it readily, but you'll definitely, well, I don't know. Let's add this to the stage and see if you guys can see it, because this is funny. This is semi-funny before things popped off. So rioters right around Minneapolis a couple of days ago picked up a tear gas canister and they threw it back at a DHS agent's vehicle, a pickup truck, whose window was rolled up and it bounced off and landed directly in the middle of their little anarchist group. And this is 15 seconds of buttery goodness.
Hey, BZ, check Private Cat.
Okay. Well, that didn't work out exactly like they planned. All right, while I'm talking. Okay. All righty. Thank you. Got it. In any event, that was something that didn't turn out all that remarkably well. But now let's go back, or excuse me, let's go forward just a bit. There was something that occurred yesterday in Arizona that I can't say that in my numerous years of law enforcement, I've seen anyone even remotely aligned with law enforcement say to our faces, say out loud. And at first I had to wonder, was this AI or was this person, because I don't know who the AG of Arizona is. Is this a real person or is this AI? Is somebody screwing with me? And no, I'm going to play the video. And I want you guys to notice that as you watch, the idea of shooting ICE agents excites her. When I was in law enforcement, I took classes from Paul Ekman. Paul Ekman is an individual who has multiple classes on different topics, predominantly revolving around clusters of emotions, being able to tell when someone is lying to you, lying to your face, and has to do with words, the timbre of words, body language, etc. And after looking at this video, which I will play it for everybody. I'm going to play the whole damn thing. And that's why I love having the ability of hosting a 2-hour show. The idea, like I said, the idea of shooting ICE agents, I believe this excites her. You can see it on her face. She says, don't do it. But then throws in a qualifier tell of, but. So if I were a prosecuting DA for an individual who shot an ICE agent, this lovely individual, this video, I should say, would be one of my first exhibits. I'd call her to testify why she believed agents with markings front and back. And people said, no, they have no markings. Well, they have markings front and back. They're in large groups. They're in vehicles with flashing lights. They don't walk around singly, knocking on doors like the guy that shot the 2 people in Minnesota did, or Michigan, I believe, did. And they should be considered targets as far as she's concerned. Then I'd let her lies, I'd use her lies against her and the suspect because, of course, the defense, the defense is going to be using the exact same video as justification. And then at the end of that, on the back end, I'd be recommending a series of huge personal lawsuits against her. This is beyond negligent. This is an active advocacy of firearm violence against law enforcement by allegedly a prosecutorial officer of the court. And I don't have any term for this other than disgusting. So let me put it up and play it. This is 4 minutes, going to play the whole thing. If either of you have any comments that you'd wish to make, just interject and I'll stop the video.
The other thing I want to bring up with you that I'm worried about that makes Arizona very, very different from almost every other state where this buildup is happening, Bram, is that we're a stand your ground state. We have one of the most expansive stand your ground laws in the entire country that rivals even Florida. We also have a lot of guns in Arizona. We're a gun culture in this state. And
okay, but this isn't because she's pro Second Amendment.
Nope.
Not in the way that you'd think.
No, she hates the fact that it's a stand your ground state. You can see that in her face and you hear it in her voice.
Yes,
she's very confident that they're a stand your ground state.
She
sees that funny. She's bragging. Well, we're even more than Florida. Usually they're bashing Florida about our stand our ground state. Now she's trying to make it sound like, oh, we're better than them with our stand our ground. Oh,
no, you can hear the contempt in her voice. We are a stand your ground state. So these are the bad consequences you're going to get.
But see, as per normal, as you and I, the three of us know, and other people, is she's leading us somewhere with this preamble.
A recipe for disaster because you have these masked federal officers with very little identification.
Wrong.
Sometimes no identification.
Wrong.
Wearing plain clothes.
Yes, they are wearing plain clothes with badges and markings and firearms and cars with lights. Not singly, not 2 or 3, but in a large group.
And mass. And we have
because otherwise leftists and Democrats are doxing the crap out of it. And other people are attacking their families, their children, and their schools.
Is wearing masks for law enforcement something new? No, it isn't.
No.
It's been happening for a long time now.
Particularly if you're on some kind of a special investigation or group on a warrant service of some sort.
Stand your ground law that says that if you reasonably believe that your life is in danger and you're in your house or your car or on your property, that you can defend yourself with lethal force.
Okay, but anybody remember Florida when Obama said the guy that stood his ground outside in public was wrong?
And he was getting his head bashed into the concrete.
That's correct. And the loving person who did that was probably his son, Trayvon Martin. Now, that's good. Or excuse me, that's bad. Bad that. This could be potentially very good. And that's what
that's the thing.
There's, as I go back, and there's your see where I'm going with this, and I can't wait until you get fucked move. Because I know what's coming. This is how I read this. And I've been reading faces for years. That's why I'm still alive today. That's, I can't wait to see you get tubed with the petard of your own making.
This is where, if you were in court, you vouch the record of the face they're making so that when it goes up on appeal, that's on the record.
Well, yeah, and like any good,
and you gotta stop there. Please note for the court that this is the face she is making, so that it's on the record, because they're making these faces thinking they're not actually saying anything. And that's the trick you do in court is you put that in the record of the face that they're making.
But you also, as a prosecutor or as a law enforcement officer conducting an interview, when you're doing this, you also want to make sure that you immure their statement on the record so that it can later be used, if necessary, against them. She just went out of her way to create a video record. And to be honest, when first after having viewed this, I was incensed. Upon reconsideration, I think this is going to come back to bite her right in the grommet.
With that and understanding what you're saying, because you know how that could be interpreted.
Well, but it's the fact.
Okay, let me also point this out. Okay, I don't know who the guy on the left is. And the podium right back there is for her, the Attorney General, State of Arizona. The name of that guy, who he represents, media of some sort. Watch throughout all of this video. He does his very level best to get her to mitigate all the statements and maybe take back some of the things that she's saying. Even he realized, and I'm sure he's not a conservative because you're talking about Arizona. Even he's trying to, and you'll see it later in a moment, even he's trying to get her to, he's cringing. It's like, God dang, lady, are you really saying? Yeah, she's saying this.
It's the fact that we have a
happiness
stand your ground law, and we have in other states ununiformed, masked people who can't be identified as police officers. That is a problem. That's why.
Happy about this. Now she'll finish her statement. It's another 2 minutes or so. And throughout, this is her thinking all the way behind. This is happy. She's saying that I'm providing you with a reason to do what I think you're about to do. And then guess what? The very next damn day it occurs.
That's why it's so important to have uniforms and to be identified, especially in a state like Arizona that has a stand your ground law. Now, if someone...
Okay, stop. Florida has a stand your ground law. How many people are getting sucked up by ICE in Florida? How many riots and protests are there? Jersey Joe. Yeah, thank you.
We have a couple protests every now and here and there, but the thing is, they're literally, I've seen them. They'll start at 3 and they're scheduled to 7 o'clock hits. They end. They're nowhere to be found.
Well, no overtime. I'm also
exactly
in North
number 2.
Idaho. Yeah.
Our governor came out and said, you get in the roadway, you block the roadway, you put fear in somebody, they have the right to protect themselves. And you can't do that shit in this state because it's not going to end well for you.
I'm in North Idaho. Even the 5-year-olds carry in this state. They can open carry. Damn near everybody carries in this state. Well, gee, BZ, why isn't that kind of crap happening in Idaho?
But it's also, we're working with ICE. We're not fighting them. We're not.
Yes.
Yes.
Hey,
if dipshit just work with ICE and hand over the ones that they asked for that are here illegally, none of this would be happening.
Mr. Hall, in which state do you reside?
West Virginia.
Okay.
The one where those two National Guard people were from.
Oh, that's right. That's right. And how many riots and massive protests and shootings have you seen in West Virginia?
None.
Thank you. Case rested.
I would like to point out something that I don't know if you're not an attorney, you don't quite see what she's actually doing. She is preemptively coaching the potential witnesses, in particular the potential people who would be prosecuted. She's telling them what they need to say to the officers. I didn't know they were an officer. They weren't in uniform. I didn't know who that was. They weren't masked. She's telling them the story to give if they get in that situation. And coaching them would be highly unethical to do it directly. She's doing it by implication. Going, they might say this.
This is her providing a pre-incident defense, if you will, to be used The very next day.
Now you're not allowed to shoot
want
peace officers.
So let's put a big pause there.
Yeah.
And go into that question.
No, she doesn't want to hear
some
what
might
he's
say
saying.
You were giving a license
No, I'm not
to an individual to shoot a peace officer.
No, absolutely not. But how do you know they're a peace officer? That's the key. And so
let me see. A whole bunch of them in vests, ballistic vests with Sam Browns and weapons and gas masks and tasers and gloves, perhaps wearing gas masks, already wearing masks. They're marked behind, they're marked in the front in all sorts of makes and manners, usually followed by a horde of automobiles with flashing lights and occasional sirens, and also throwing gas munitions. No, that's not a clue. Come on.
If there's a situation,
and don't forget the Batman utility belts.
Yes, and that too. Thank you.
Gun, because they know Arizona is a stand your ground state. Then it becomes, did they reasonably know that they were a peace officer?
Yes.
I mean, this is a different set of circumstances in the state of Arizona. And so,
but to be clear,
okay, third time, if you've been counting, that he is attempting to interject to get her to center and level.
No, I mean,
it's ironic because this is a Second Amendment issue.
This is a Second Amendment issue.
But to be clear, you're not telling folks you have license if you are threatened. To shoot a peace officer.
Well, let's go back and look at that. Listen and watch again.
To
shoot a peace officer.
No.
Well, when the eyes move to the right, that indicates generally deception. When the eyes move to the right and upwards, that means thinking and thinking about deceiving.
No, but again, if you're being attacked by someone who is not identified as a peace officer, how do you know? I mean, if somebody comes at me wearing a mask, by the way, I'm a gun owner. If somebody comes at me wearing a mask and I can't tell whether they're a police officer, what am I supposed to do?
But this is not a single one-off situation by a guy who's a fucking nut knocking on the door of officials, government officials, which is what she's referring to, which is what occurred, I think, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, something like that.
Honestly, Bram, look what happened in Minnesota to the two legislators.
That's my point.
One of whom was killed by a guy impersonating a police officer.
But not a bunch of guys, a plethora of guys in a bunch of trucks parked on her lawn, coming out, numerous people with guns and lights flashing and sirens. No. Entirely, completely, ridiculously specious argument in my estimation.
That is why this is so incredibly incendiary. And again,
it's only incendiary because you are making it so.
Situation being caused by ICE and the federal government.
It's being caused by leftists who are using performative and virtue signaling kinds of things to make sure that we can't allow the federal government to do its job. That's the very foundation of this problem. This could all go away. It should have not even appeared. It should have gone away years ago, decades ago. But they continued to push the narrative of sanctuary cities, mandating, not asking kindly, but mandating that ICE go into the various communities, areas, buildings, etc., where illegal invaders and criminals can be found, because you didn't want to make it simple for ICE and CBP and DHS. You had to make it as difficult as you possibly could. And here's a person that's making excuses for it. You should know so much better, but you don't. But now I know who you are.
And we are a stand your ground state. So it creates this combustible situation. No, I am not.
It is combustible. Look at today.
Suggesting that people pull out their guns. But
I'm not suggesting that people pull out their guns.
But this is a don't tread on me state.
And the little head toss back and forth means Okay, well, it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. And, quite frankly, I'm not going to say it, but I'm showing you by way of body language and the timbre of my voice that, I kind of think it's going to be cool.
This is a Second Amendment state. This is a state with a lot of guns in it. And we have a law on the books that the Republican legislature passed that says you have the right to defend yourself if you reasonably believe that your life is in danger.
And yet, how many riots and protests and thousands of people are protesting in any big urban rat cage in Arizona? Thousands, hundreds, tens of them, rioters, shootings, any of that nature, the violence that you see inherent within Minneapolis and within Minnesota. Are you seeing it in Arizona? Well, she's predominantly okay because she knows it's not probably going to happen there. But this is incitement for, any of the other lurks, leftist urban rat cages. And no more than 24 hours later, she should be supremely satisfied right now.
Except when it involves a police officer. But we also have a federal government that is putting officers on the street without any identification. That is combustible.
I think she needs glasses.
Yeah.
Let me ask you real quick. If you were a prosecutor in Arizona and the state's attorney general is putting this out, are you going to press charges?
In Arizona, no.
Yeah, but see, this is a big signal to all the prosecutors of, the chief legal officer in the state, saying that you may not want to prosecute them on this.
Well, this has
a tremendous, what in law they call a chilling effect.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I hadn't thought about that, but that's an apt phrase.
Because you're going to have prosecutors, and particularly assistant prosecutors, are going, which side are we going to take? Are we going to go against the attorney general? Or are we going to go with the federal government? What's best for my career? And do they want to take chances? Do they want to prosecute people? Because every prosecution is a chance. It's part of your career. You want a win ratio. You want to make sure you can win the case with the evidence. And she's there telling you, you might not win with this one. You might not want to go with that ID thing. What's the court going to do? Is the court going to side with me, or is the court going to side with that prosecutor? What's the message to the judges of what type of evidence and how much they're going to weigh it? There is no reason the attorney general should be coming out here with this chilling speech to prejudice future cases.
Very true. Oh, since I'm here and since I have the story up, let me put this in right now. This is from Breitbart. Folks, like my law professor, Elton Long, said numerous times during lectures, parenthesis, never match eyes with Elton Long because he will call on you, end of parenthesis. This is also her, AG Chris Mays from Arizona, saying ICE officers are not ICE officers. They are not law enforcement. They're not real law enforcement. And as Elton Long said, you may see this material again. So let's continue. Now, people say, well, you should be believing Waltz. You should be believing Democrats. You should be believing the people in Minneapolis and the people in Minnesota. But they're still saying all the lies. If you can't tell the truth about a 5-year-old, then how can you be expected to tell the truth about anything else? So the father involved in this, and I'll show you the article in just a moment or two. The father left his son in the car in the middle of winter in Minnesota, and when ICE agents took the kid to his residence, the people who lived there wouldn't even open the door. The media in this country, they're not just a bunch of liars in what I term the American media maggots. They're evil. They're doing the work of those who hate and want to dismantle this country. You can't get it. How can you possibly get it wrong like this unless you're intentionally trying to mislead people? So let me see if I have the story on this. Yeah, let me put this up. Okay, so the kid's name is Liam Ramos, 5 years old. And my point is, you can't believe these people. So the person identified as the alleged mother of this kid said she didn't want to take custody of him.
Yep.
So he was taken, properly so, into the care of federal workers at taxpayer expense. So leftists and Democrats and the American media maggots have demonized the crap out of ICE, saying that they in truth provided care for him while his illegal immigrant father was in custody. So let's see what you would do in a similar circumstance. A, leave him out in the freezing cold because you have a point to make that ICE themselves are evil. Or B, you can naturally try to leave him with a relative who won't even speak to you. It's like, check. Relative, check. So what's the alternative? Well, you try to take him into some kind of a care home, or you try to figure out where he's going to go.
And if they wouldn't have taken him, what would be the narrative?
Well, yes, 5-year-old
abandoned by ICE in the snow.
5-year-old brown boy allowed to freeze by white male supremacists.
Yeah,
that would be the narrative of that. You can guarantee that that's what it would be. And then a
cold-hearted would have been in there somewhere.
Oh yeah, allowed to freeze. His snot froze from his nose, and they watched him die, and they enjoyed it. Probably not as much as A.G. Hayes did, but they would have enjoyed it. Media runs wild with the egregious lie that our ICE targeted a 5-year-old in Minnesota. And DHS says, and rightly so, well, the kid was abandoned. So, our alternative is ...
The worst part about all that whole story is even after it was debunked a day later, you still had Democrat politicians posting the lie and running with the lie. After it was debunked, they still pushed the lie.
Waltz carried that lie today. Fry continued that lie today.
Elizabeth Warren did it the day after. It's disgusting that they go out. These politicians need to be held accountable, both right and left, when they give a blatant lie as they instigate these violent acts. They need to be held liable for it, whether civilly or criminally. It's getting out of hand that they have this immunity to protect them so they can run their mouth, lie to the people, and get Americans killed.
Well, I want to remind everybody, just 1 second, if I could pause. This is where we are.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And I am BZ. Over to my right, let me see if I get the pointing the right direction. There we go. Stephen is over there to the right, and catty corner down below is Jersey Joe, the Reaver of Common Sense. And thanks to everybody for being here. I trust you to be adults. You don't even need to hold up your hand. If you need to go to the electric winkle chamber, I didn't have any breaks tonight, so keep your hand down, do what you need, let the dog go on the carpet, take yourself outside, whatever needs to be done. You're an adult. I trust you. Go ahead and do it. And then at 9:05 this morning, what we heard was this. A Homeland Security post came out which says DHS law enforcement officers conducting a targeted operation in Minneapolis against a specified illegal alien wanted for violent assault. An individual approached U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun seen there. I happen to know what that is. That's a SIG. a SIG like that would, I don't know, that'd be somewhere anywhere from, depending on where you bought it, free if you're a criminal and you just steal one, what the hell? Or it would be anywhere from, depending upon the model and the accoutrement on it, $700 to $800 to $900, when that's not a particularly cheap gun. But I guess the guy had the Greckles himself, because it turns out he was a nurse, which has absolutely nothing to do with this. And by the way, I see Ricky Robinson is in chat, and Mission Ready Men is in chat. So the officers attempted to disarm the suspect, but the armed suspect violently resisted. And so this is what you get. And, you know, I repeat, at the risk of being from the Department of Redundancy Department, if you hadn't brought a firearm into a peaceful protest, not a riot, because you keep saying these aren't riots. So if they're not riots, then why would you need a firearm? And why would you need it to bring with ICE and get in the grill of ICE and CBP as they're attempting to arrest somebody who will be a boon when he is removed? That, again, makes zero sense to me at all. Let's start off with one of the first videos that I saw. I'm going to try to see if this thing has audio. Yeah, it does have audio.
Doing too much, man, and they keep pushing people, you know.
Okay. By the way, how many people here have been in knockdown drag-out fights? It's easy to get control of somebody, isn't it? All you do is snap a kung fu move on them, and it can be taken.
Well, you see, in the movies, the people see it's easy. And
sure. Well, and the other thing is, you know, like James Arness, why don't these asshole ICE agents just wing them? If they just wing them, like Sheriff Jim, then all would be well. If you've ever been in a knockdown drag-out fight, no matter how much training you have, unless you are in fact some kind of a Krav Maga artist, or you have MMA training or martial arts training, this doesn't go all that well and swimmingly for you.
I've done enough martial arts to know you don't have that much control.
No, you don't. And just as rioters win with numbers, the only way, unless you shoot somebody not anticipating that they have deadly force themselves, like, oh, I don't know, a car in a Sig Sauer, then it is, and it can be, just kind of a big-ass pig pile. Because, you know, oh, I'm sure he wasn't resisting. No, people don't resist. Come on.
Or you can see him pushing up against it.
What the fuck? They killed him? Did they fucking kill that guy? Are you fucking kidding me, dude?
Okay, that's one video. Would it surprise anybody to know that I probably have a few more of those for tonight?
Well, that was the first one I saw too. So
yeah, and that's why I put it up chronologically in terms of that was the first that I'd ever seen of it. Of course,
you can see him pushing up against them.
Yeah,
you can see him struggle
because this guy has suicidal empathy, and which is only applicable to illegal invaders and criminals, and he doesn't have any empathy towards the actual victims of these crimes. I repeat, you know, again, Democrats and leftists absolutely could not, because of the foundation that I mentioned at the very beginning of this. Sanctuary cities are getting people killed. So Democrats and leftists, because of that precept, they don't care how many bodies of actual Americans have to be stacked and packed and buried. They really don't. They don't care if it's an illegal invader. They don't care if it's an actual American. The bottom line is they just don't care. So here's this guy. Look, they put up the best smiley picture of this guy possible. He was an ICU nurse. And again, as I'm saying, immaterial, absolutely immaterial to the narrative. No one really cares what he did.
not like a nurse can't be a criminal. It's not like
No,
they've had the
no,
Nightingale nurses and
Come on. This is from KTLA. Man killed by a U.S. Border Patrol officer in Minneapolis was an ICU nurse. Okay, that's...
I like the one that said that he was a son and a brother. Pretty much, isn't any man who is in trouble somebody's son?
Yeah,
I mean, that's
probably.
Everybody.
Yeah, but see, here's the truthful headline, which allows the ability of this story to go pretty much any way. Man waving gun at feds attempting to arrest illegal criminal migrant in Minneapolis is fatally shot by ICE agents, by DHS. That's the actual that should be up there.
Yeah.
I have to say unequivocally, I'm sorry, go ahead, Stephen.
That is actually objective. They're not saying whether the shooting was good or bad.
No.
They're just saying the factual things of what was happening. They're not
that's
making a judgment call on whether the shoot was correct or not. And that's what you want to see in headlines is objective facts listed.
And here's the headline that they buried. I read it. They buried this lead about 8 paragraphs down. I should also mention, I have to say, because this is my show and I get to opine, that this is my position right now. This is the show that you're watching tonight, where I'm saying that, yes, this is an SHR Media special report. It's about the ICE shooting in Minneapolis. This is the gentleman. And looky here what happens to appear in the right hand of that guy when you freeze a particular frame. Now, anybody and everybody is going to be freezing frames of these videos from now until forever. But just as with Honda Pilot driver, that ICE agent is going to have his day. And the ICE agent, parenthesis S, because I don't know how many fired, they're going to have their day in court as well. But now let's see, is that a stuffed fuzzy bunny in his hand because he loves ice? Is that a clutch of flowers in his hand because he came to give them to ICE? I submit, probably not. Probably not. I know one thing today. So let us continue with the show, if we might. I think I'm going to be able to get to a number of stories. Oh, this was great. This is like the school of massive violent schadenfreude. I got to put up because this is too terribly delicious for me to avoid during a 2-hour show. Here's a guy that following the shooting of in Minneapolis. This guy calls himself an Antifa member, and he's telling his followers to arm themselves, fight against ICE and the federal government, who he calls Nazi gunmen. And he says, it's time to suit up, boots on the ground. I'm not talking about peaceful protests. We're not talking about having polite, nice conversations anymore. He says quite unequivocally, hey, get your fucking guns and stop these fucking people. A minute, I'm going to play the thing again, because if you suspect, BZ, do you have a point to make?
My name is Kyle. I'm Antifa, and there's so much rage in me that I've had to record this like 15 times trying to get the message out.
Because who doesn't have the greatest job in the world with tattoos on your fucking face?
They fucked up. Okay, go watch my other videos. Doesn't matter if you're not here and you're not caught up. You missed the fucking fight. But if you are, it's time to suit up. Boots on the ground. Nicollet and fucking 26th. My house is 4 blocks away. Anywhere between Franklin and Nicollet and 26th and Nicollet. Show up, ready to go. Okay, not talking about peaceful protests anymore. We're not talking about having polite conversations anymore. I am talking specifically to my fucking followers. This is everything I have fucking talked about, and this is exactly what I said was going to happen.
When the fuck were they having peaceful conversations?
Oh, the United States are ringing with peaceful conversations.
Oh, yes.
Want to have and are ringing and have been ringing for decades. let's just sit down at a nice even table with a cup of steaming hot cocoa, and we can discuss our differences and come to a mutual agreement of bipartisanship and compromise.
This was going to fucking come when we didn't fucking go and march on fucking Whipple with guns. Sorry, but welcome to America 2026, where Second Amendment is the only thing that's going to keep you fucking protected from literal fucking Nazi gunmen that are killing innocent people in the street with impunity. This is not a fucking joke. There's nothing fun to chant about it. Get your fucking guns and stop these fucking people.
Okay. Well, tell me the right-wing equivalent of that. Why? Let me take this down, because might it be possible that I'm going somewhere with this? Well, yes, it would be. So that big, terrible Antifa general by the name of Kyle Wagner, because he put it out himself anyway. He has no problem or qualms with telling you who he is and what he wants. He made a video that you just saw telling people to arm up and let's start shooting. Okay. So what is he? Let me see. Here's 55 seconds.
What the fuck?
And again, just like all the stuff that happens these days, all these little leftist pussies.
I was looking at the other screen for a minute, and I turn around and see this shit.
Yeah, and you're going, damn, where'd BZ get that crap? Okay,
God damn.
Here's 55 seconds of nutter, buttery leftist deliciousness.
I do this all year, all the time. I'm out and about like this because I do it for me all year. All the time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. I'm a fucking blue collar fuck of a dude all day long. And then at least a few times every week, I like to get real clean and pretty and go out, shoot pool or get dinner, maybe go dance. You never
going to get pretty.
Right. But
okay. I got to stop it right here. You guys get the point. That's for you, Joe.
There are not enough computer filters.
It's like, now you know that just like with all the leftist white chicks, these people are fucking nuts. This dude is a tranny, okay? And trannies are fucking brain damaged from the word go. So what goes better with a tranny than a gun? Right? How many trannies have we seen shoot people in school assassinations in, I don't know, the past year? The trans community is the largest, most violent cohort of gun-toting, shooting, killing, murdering people per percentile than any other cohort in the United States. There are more violent tranny assholes shooting and killing people per capita than any other tranche of individuals extant. This dude's a nut. This dude's got a gun. How many schools is he going to shoot? And when he says that he's going to go down to the ICE building, I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it at all.
I'm hoping the FBI intercepts him.
No, because the last thing he is going to go for is a hard target.
Yeah.
Okay, say it again.
The last thing he's going to try to shoot is somebody who can shoot back.
Well, yeah, and or suicide by cop.
Now he might do that.
Well, excuse me, suicide by cop and or suicide themselves, because they're brain damaged. This unit is a brain damaged, violent ass tranny. Simple as that. I don't know.
But I think he would go after somebody he thinks is a cop, whether they are or not, just on the assumption who's unarmed, because it doesn't place himself at risk.
No, because it's just another punk tranny.
So, I believe the guy from today, he intentionally went there with the idea that was going to happen just for the cause. He was going to be a martyr for his side.
Yeah, but I have more respect for that than this guy.
Well, yeah, but today's thing, I think he martyred himself. He intentionally did this knowing what was going to be the outcome. Yeah. His parents warned him. He supposedly started scrubbing his social media. So
that's interesting. I had not considered that. The other thing is
confirmed, but some of the reports are he scrubbed his social media. We've seen CBS report that his parents told him not to go, be peaceful, don't get bobbed with ice.
Somewhere along the line, I do have that video. As a matter of fact, did not you most recently, Jersey Joe, put that up?
In our chat.
I'll be able to access that. Oh, you stuck that up in the chat? Okay. Shoot. I'm not in private chat right now. No, okay. Anyway, I want to mention this as well. Anybody remember? Let's go back. What was it? 4 days after the George Thug riots. It was 4 days before Tampon Tim Retard Waltz called for the National Guard. So this guy himself did not mind waiting for the National Guard while his city burned. Now, you sent me this, Joe. Let me put this up here right now. You guys probably won't be able to see it. But if you can explain that, Joe.
The guy that got off today, parents told him not to engage with federal officers while attending protests in Minnesota. Quote, we had this discussion with him 2 weeks ago or so, that go ahead and protest, but do not engage. Do not do anything stupid, basically, Alex's father said that he told CBS News. And he said he knows that, and he knew that. He knew not to do any of this, but yet he went ahead and still did it.
Why does his father tell him to do that? Because his father already knows he will.
Yeah.
Or suspected, certainly.
Yeah. You don't warn somebody of something you don't think they might do.
No, this again falls into a bit of the leftist white savior complex who lost their life. We'll have to find out whether intentionally or not. Shilling for illegal invader criminals. And it's a concept that for me is very difficult to understand. And then, of course, Minneapolis had to go into what I considered to be their massively irresponsible press conference because it feeds and fed into the Fry and other Minneapolis officials instantly declaring a murder just like the first. And the politicians, of course, just like Honda Pilot driver, are saying the exact same thing once again, all over again, making sure that they get their narrative out first. I see no other way to quantify this as actively provoking people to riot. And again, why do you bring a firearm to what Democrats and leftists continuously typified as a peaceful protest? If it's a peaceful protest, why would you ever need to bring a firearm?
I don't care that he brought one to the protest. That's his right if he wants to carry. But bear with me, please. Why the fuck are you going to pull it out when you have cops on top of you? Why are you going to try to draw a weapon when you got a gaggle of law enforcement on top of you? You're outgunned, and you're going to pull a weapon out? You're only pulling the weapon out for one reason at that point. You don't pull your weapon out other than to use it. And if you have that many cops on you, you just signed your own warrant.
And I think if you look at the videos and you keep looking at them and expand them, it looks to me like he was repeatedly trying to withdraw his firearm, but he just couldn't. I don't know, maybe it snagged on his clothes. I don't know if he had a holster. I don't know if it was carried freely in the pocket of a coat or pants. I just don't know. Maybe it snagged on the clothes or the belt, whatever. But once an officer saw the gun, then you can hear in a video that I will play later that the officer or one or several officers yell, gun, gun, gun. That's what we are trained to do when a gun is spotted on a particular call. And that's to allow the other officers who may be involved on the scene or at the call to be aware that the suspect, that guy in this particular instance, has a gun. Let me put this up and play this right now.
Hold on, BZ. Hold on.
Okay, now you can see one of the ICE officers using a spray after that guy pushed the chick.
And he kept going at her, even being sprayed. He kept going at her.
Yes, he's being sprayed by an officer. Now, do I have? Yeah, okay. I can use this. This might be in the portrait a little tough to see. In the landscape, not so tough. But this is the guy right here. Look at dark top, sort of tannish cream kind of colored pants right there.
The fuck, people? The fuck is wrong with you? Honestly.
Okay, and again, there's a push. Now, that's one of a number of videos that I have. Let me see if I have another one lined up already. So
a lot more questions about this.
Yeah, there are some other videos that are a little bit more clarifying. Oh, never mind. This is the one that I played before. Let me remove this and go to another.
Because now I want to know who she is.
Okay. Well, yes, exactly. And why was gun leftist? Why was he intent on trying to push, harm her? What was that all about? I mean, normally, a good leftist protester and rioter loves another good protester and rioter. So, as you point out, Stephen Hall, okay, what was the gig with that? Now, this next is a slow motion video. And in this one, it shows the suspect trying to draw his gun and then doing it right before Border Patrol agents take him down in Minneapolis. And then let me see if I can go back to this, if that's the one. No, that's not the one that I'm looking for. This is. And so I think this is a similar view. It appears to be the similar view or the same camera. I'm not quite sure. But the arrow is there. And look, and now we're going to look at the video itself in slow motion. It's about 14 or 15 seconds or so. I will embiggen it thusly. Okay, did you see it? God dang, I'm going to have to move this back. Okay, I can stop it here. Look at the ICE agent that's pretty much in the center of the screen with light-colored pants. And to me, that looks like a right hand attempting to draw a weapon. But then look at the individual that is just to the right of him, lower than he is, about the height of his waist. Now look at that individual's right hand. I believe that's the suspect. Go. There is something in the hand of that individual. Let me continue. because there were a number. You guys tell me if we have seen this one before. I think we may have.
I don't think so.
Okay, I'm turning this down because that noise
Causes
annoying ears to go crazy.
Okay, so that's the phone of the woman in pink.
Right.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, it's just the earlier version.
Yeah. And again, they're attempting to stop this guy. Why is this guy there? He doesn't respond to gas munitions. There's only one reason for his presence, and that's to screw with ICE. I can think of no other reason. So he intentionally inserted himself.
Fuck people! The fuck is wrong with you? Honestly.
Okay, stop. Let me take this off here.
Collaborate and listen.
People are customarily do say that, okay, in terms of a shooting, why do cops shoot so much? Well, it's been proven, and I went over this about 2 weeks ago, that once an officer starts shooting, there are studies that have indicated that once a shot is delivered, that sometimes it can take up to 0.3 seconds, 0.36 seconds to almost half a second before they realize what's going on. They may get off 2 more shots, and then that distinctly illustrates what occurred with Honda Pilot Driver. But also with regard to this, why do all those cops shoot so much? Well, let's see. Did they know that day that there was going to be a shooting there? No.
Did they have time to stop and go, okay, who's going to be the shooter for this? Who's going to respond? Are you going to, no, never mind. He's going to respond. Nobody else pull their gun.
Right. So in this situation, in this microsecond, if this person shoots, then Jose, you shoot. Now, Bill and Edgar, you can't shoot. And so 5 seconds from now, Edgar, if it's another person, we've decided you can shoot, but Jose, you can't shoot. That's not how life works. If you as an individual perceive that your life is in jeopardy, you react as you react. And unless you've been in a shooting, like I have, been shot at 4 times, returned fire once, then you really don't have much of an idea what it is that you're talking about in terms of critical incidents.
I still like Judge Grady when he was asked, well, why'd you shoot him 68 times? Because we ran out of bullets.
Oh, Judge Grady. Awesome dude. Now, again, I'm going to play this. I don't know if the arrow...
Very often when you're drawing a gun, your first shot is going to be off because you haven't quite lined it up yet. That second or third shot's always more accurate than that first one.
Well, Honda Pilot Driver received a quite accurate shot the first time. Hey, I also want to remind everybody that because we're not taking breaks tonight, I want to remind everybody of this. Come on.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
I'm going to play this one. I don't know how long it is because I just found this one just before the show. So I don't know if the arrow that you see here follows this suspect throughout. I'll play it and see. Yeah, I can't stand the damn whistles. I'd shoot somebody just for that. Yeah, okay, it's pretty much the same one. Okay, we've seen it. Move along, BZ. They say this video makes it clear you can see the gun roll out of his hand when they begin to work on him. I believe this is post-shooting. When I started, I will embiggen it. And folks, you tell me what you see and what you think.
Okay, come on. Come on. Oh my God, you fucking people, man. You're fucking killing us. Why would you do that? Oh my God, I can't believe I'm seeing this. Okay.
Oh, let me stop that. That wasn't as clear as I'd hoped. Let me continue to move along here. And again, this is a photo. Let me see if I can make this bigger. Another photo. And then continue. Now, here's the one that you put on the stage, and it's a little bit bigger here. And Alex Preddy's parents told him not to engage with federal officers. We had this discussion with him 2 or 3 weeks ago, as you know. Go ahead and protest. Don't engage. Don't do anything stupid. Alex's father, Mike Preddy, told CBS News. And he said he knows that. He said he knew that. Well, apparently, you know, at this point, it's so early. How do you know what's going on in people's minds? But I will tell you this. Here's the instigator in chief right here. And who does that happen to be? That's Tim Waltz, who is most definitely the instigator in chief. Let me see if I can play this.
Ironically enough, as co-chair with Marco Rubio, we used to bring in Chinese political prisoners, and we would ask them, when we speak up and call out your government, is it bad? And they said, well, in the short run it's bad because they torture us. But if you don't speak up, they will torture us and forget about us. And the idea is right now is we have to be speaking up. We have to call it out. You are doing everything, and our neighbors are doing everything. And I can't stress enough on this. We're winning it because we're doing it with Minnesota grit, Minnesota humor, Minnesota decency.
Did he say Minnesota humor? Why, yes, BZ. Protests and riots are being carried out with Minnesota humor. Way to go.
Oftentimes talk about this, and I know people are discussing this a lot. I spent a lot of time with John Lewis on nonviolent resistance. The resistance matters. We're not telling people to be silent, but we're not telling people to go out and cause problems. We're going to cause good trouble.
We're going to cause trouble. Well, it's the Mark I Model 1 continuous litany of that kind of stuff, which enables those people who wish to be enabled to go ahead and produce the kinds of behaviors that we're seeing today. And I don't know if you guys know Jonathan Turley. He's one of a handful of journalists that I still respect, along with John Solomon and a few others. Susan Katz being one of them, but people have no idea who the hell Susan Katz is. This is the kind of a journalist Susan Katz was. She said she was schooled in Davis, California, which is kind of the locus of the Sacramento Valley leftists. And she was in the journalist department there, and she was schooled by an individual in journalism who said, I want to be so unbiased that I don't even vote. I don't register as a Republican. I don't register as Democrat. I don't register as independent. I don't register, and I don't vote, so that I am not influenced when I write my articles. That's the kind of journalist that Susan Katz is. There aren't others like her around anymore. I respect Jonathan Turley. These little winky words are really small, but Jonathan Turley said, let's see, earlier this morning, Governor Waltz is again inflaming the mob. He is effectively declaring this to be the murder of a citizen who had a permit to carry this weapon. He's saying that the state, not the federal government, will control the investigation. He doesn't have that authority. The state can clearly have a parallel investigation and the federal government can do a joint investigation. However, he cannot dictate how or who will conduct the investigation. And with thousands in the streets, Waltz just did all that he could to give them license for their rage. Most of us would never call this a lawful or unlawful shooting based on one videotape. There are more videotapes coming in, and I don't doubt, as with any event, more videotapes will be found and unfolded. But here's the other problem. The other little bitty big cat turd in the punch bowl.
Safety in our city. As you'll hear from Director Sayer in just a second, we have seen these kinds of operations in other places, in other countries, but not here in America.
No, you mean not in Minneapolis. Because again, I posit, why is this shit happening only in Minneapolis? Why isn't it popping up like incredible amounts of violence in, the locus of violence? Berkeley, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle. Why only in Minneapolis? Because you, sir, and all your other leftist anarcho-leftard shitsticks around you are doing your level best to fan the flames.
Not in a way where a great American city is being invaded by its own federal government.
Oh, the great America city that burnt itself to the ground because of the George Thug riots. Huh. Imagine that. I could go on and on with this guy. He's just loopy. Please, somebody don't put a gun in his hands. This I found was an amazing amount of stupidity from a guy that was at the presser. This is a picture that I took off the TV, a screen capture. Okay, so today at 12:30 Pacific, this guy gets on the air in a press conference, and this little bald dude is Minnesota DPS, Department of Public Safety Commissioner, a guy named Bob Jacobson. Okay, this is a quote from that. Whether you believe me or not, I couldn't care less, but it took me about 5 minutes to get this quote distinct word for word. We were able to get there, meaning DPS and representatives of MPD and Minnesota State Patrol. I'll get to them in just a moment. We were able to get there, but at that time, we were not able to hold that scene to do a crime scene investigation. ... Okay, then how, as Governor Waltz demanded, do you, sir, plan to investigate and prosecute the authority of which you lack the situation when the scene was not secured? You didn't hold the scene by your own admission. So if you don't have it, and you didn't secure it because you were afraid of the protesters, then how is it that you're going to conduct a halfway decent co-investigation as you want, and or with what evidence after the crime scene has been obliterated by protesters and rioters because, frankly, they couldn't give a shit less? So this is completely nonsensical at this point. This would be another point where I would stop and I would say something similar to, well, Stephen L. Hall, having been in situations not too terribly dissimilar from this, if these were the circumstances and you were, I don't know, say a defense attorney, could you possibly poke a hole or two in this?
You mean having no chain of custody of the alleged gun, having no real layout of the crime scene? That leaves a lot of doubt and a lot of reasonable doubt because you don't know what happened.
So could I not go so incredibly far and stretch as to say it's not entirely impossible that without the proper evidence securing of a scene, chain of custody, you might have a little wee bit of a problem prosecuting this.
Yeah, because if it gets thrown out, you have nothing.
Yes, it's going to be all or nothing at all.
I mean, you have to have the chain of custody or you don't have any evidence to put in. And if it breaks at any point in time, you're not getting it admitted.
Well, the one thing that bothers me is people don't understand. Just because he was down on the ground and several officers on top of him does not mean that he was under control and that he wasn't resisting.
Mm-hmm.
You could be on that bottom and still do a lot of damage to the officers. It's when I see people make those types of comments, it tells me that they have no basis in reality. They watch too many movies. They think if all these people are on top of him, he's subdued. He can't do nothing. Oh, that's not reality. They can do a lot, and they can get escaped very easily. You know, when you're wiggling and screwing, you can get out of that. It tells me that you don't know reality, you don't know what a real fight is, and you don't know what goes on in law enforcement and emergency fields.
But if you can't trace the gun that you have in custody to the gun that was in that picture, somewhere along the lines, you lost train of that. You can't admit it to evidence.
Well, and what's one of the first things that attorneys do is all they have to do is produce the slightest bit of doubt in a criminal trial. And so unless you get a complete unanimous verdict, all it takes is one individual to say, you know, I have not been sufficiently convinced, and we cannot come to any other conclusion except not guilty. Let me go back to one other aspect of this that I certainly remember from 1986. And people completely forget about this, and intentionally so, because I don't expect you all to be cops or to be versed in this kind of information. There was the Miami shootout with the FBI in 1986. And there were two guys involved. One of them was named Michael Platt, and the other guy was named William Russell Maddox. And they both were serving in the Army, and they both were running up and down highways in Miami, and they were committing robberies. And they had, if I'm not mistaken, they had an AR-15 and a Mini-14. And during the process of this, there were, let me see, there was a Ruger Mini-14. Michael Platt, I think he had the Mini-14. He had a Ruger. He had two 357s. Maddox had a 12-gauge shotgun, and the agents themselves had like 38s and a 357 and a 9mm and something like that. So 4 FBI agents were killed. 5 were injured, and the perpetrators, Michael Platt and William Maddox, were both killed. But they took hits to the portion of the head and to the chest from close shots, one from a shotgun, and they continued firing and operating their guns after they were hit. In autopsies, there were bullets that should have killed them immediately, but did not. And it's because of this shootout that the FBI decided that they were going to go to the 10mm gun. And then they discovered that 10mm were a little bit too much for women. So that's how you got the 40 caliber, which is a necked 10mm. And so because of this, people don't realize that because they're shot until they actually stop the aggression, that's when you stop, because there are all sorts of incidents in which people, having been shot, can still shoot back. And that's one of the major reasons. Let me go to Waltz here in a little bit. I'm not going to get to a fraction of this. And like I say, if you guys want to interject at any time, please do. I'm going to play a news conference from Waltz. The one from Fry was, he's a nutter. Waltz still needs serious mental help. He claims that he tries to de-escalate the situation with ICE. And then just a few seconds later in the press conference, he pops off on this big old tirade where he calls Border Patrol and ICE agents deadly, violent, cruel, and unprofessional. And the other thing that he says in this that I referred to earlier in the first hour is the AG from Arizona. These aren't real law enforcement officers. And this is Waltz again saying, these people aren't real law enforcement officers. I think others would beg to differ. Let me put this up and play this for a while until you guys get disgusted.
Local media has reported extensively on the cooperation to de-escalate this situation.
There's been zero attempt for Tampon Tim to de-escalate cat poop.
Donald Trump, I call on you once again. Remove this force from Minnesota.
Stop. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because if they do, everybody else is going to take advantage of that. Guaranteed. These are lawful USC codes on the books, which until they are eradicated by Congress, and that's up to Congress to do, they will still be enforced. No matter where you are, no matter where you go, in the continental United States or up in Alaska. Continue.
They are sowing chaos and violence. We've seen deadly violence from federal agents again and again and again.
Then stop resisting. Stop showing up at riots.
Minnesotans are witnessing.
Stop attacking the police.
Yes.
For the future prosecution of ICE agents and officials responsible for this. They're helping,
like yourselves,
helping their neighbors. They're walking their kids to school. They're feeding families. I salute their courage and their restraint.
Okay. What I take away from this is the people, the idiots of Minnesota and Minneapolis are those that are absolutely, they support illegal invaders. And they support illegal invaders who have committed crimes from getting removed from this country on murder, rape, sodomy, drug trafficking, human trafficking laws all across the United States. And again, I go back to why only in Minneapolis is this happening? Because I am telling you, the harder you push back, the harder ICE is going to push back. Guaranteed.
And I call on all Americans to see the decency that this state is exhibiting.
You're exhibiting nutter behavior.
And the horrific cruelty, unprofessional, absolute abomination that is passing for what these ICE agents are doing on our streets. After all,
because here's why. It's been proven a long time ago that 2 ICE agents walking up to a building, whichever, fill in the blank, and saying, is Juan Valdez here? That doesn't work. And then there's a fight. And then the neighborhood comes. And then the rest of the neighborhood comes. And then the rocks in the bottles and the frozen ice pea bottles are thrown. So whenever ICE goes anywhere, they don't go singly. They don't go doubly. They go with a lot of people. Why would this be, BZ? Because they've been trained to do that by the resistance that they receive and the behavior that is pushed in front of them. And that there have been, people, if you have a gun at an ICE scene, like gun leftist, I guess you should automatically assume that he's trying to turn it over to here. I have a gun. I can lawfully carry this. So all I'm doing is handing it over to you. After I punch people and I try to interfere and I got sprayed with OC and nothing happened.
He committed an assault against a civilian and had a weapon on him.
Well, and that's
here in Florida, that's extra charges automatically if you commit a crime while having a weapon on you. The guy was not innocent. He attacked somebody, then he fought law enforcement. End of discussion, end of everything. He put himself in that situation. I'm sorry he's dead. I'm sorry.
Because it was so unnecessary.
Yes, it was unnecessary.
10 years ago.
He put himself in this situation. He caused that scene. He attacked somebody. And that's what everybody also keeps skipping over. He attacked somebody. He assaulted somebody with a weapon on him. That's extra charges right there. In most states.
If you hadn't fad, you wouldn't foe.
Don't tread on me doesn't mean we fight against law enforcement, ignore laws.
You know, if you're 37 years old and you can't even listen to mommy and daddy, who were really smart, you know, it's behavior displayed that gets reacted to. And it's no more complicated than this. I might continue with Tim for another minute, maybe.
Well, can I insert something before you go on with Tim?
Yes, sir.
Something he had said earlier on a previous video, something the guy from that other town, the mayor or whatever, maybe it was Minneapolis. I want you to pay attention to the language that they're using and the language they're not using.
Ah, yes.
One, the mayor saying they're going, we're being invaded. Okay, invaded is now a very serious thing. But Tim Sarah saying we want to cause trouble, but we don't want to be violence. As if there is a fine line between trouble and violence, and that's the point where you cross into criminality. Nowhere in there is it about obstructing or interfering before we get to violence. And that's what's convincing these people that have no education in law enforcement, that type of thing, that this troublemaking is okay until you get actual violence. He's calling for future prosecution of ICE agents, which is nothing short of saying what they're doing is criminal. So you're upholding the law by going after the ICE people.
Well,
this is so much instigation with language that just smushes two ends. We're not being violent. We're not calling for violence. We're calling for you to be troubled. There's a whole range of stuff in between that these people who do not know anything are falling into the cracks. He's setting them up as a trap. I'm telling them we want to create trouble, but we don't want to draw the line at violence. And there's a whole bunch of illegal stuff in between where you're not technically being violent. You're obstructing, you're threatening, you're harassing. And that's what's causing these situations, is the language that these politicians are using, going from one extreme to the other without any nuance in between.
Well, it's inflammatory rhetoric. There, you can see behavior, and the thing that I find very confusing and alarming and sad all at once is the fact that you cannot get a certain cohort of people to understand that if there were no sanctuary cities, then ICE would be doing what they were originally tasked for many, many years ago, and there would be no necessity whatsoever to reach out into the neighborhoods, into the homes, into the businesses, into the places of work, into a church, into another building for any reason when somebody tells you Juan Valdez is over here in this building, but it's a church, so you can't go in there. Well, it's okay if you go into a church if you're Don Lemon, or you can't go into a building at work because you might embarrass him in there. Well, likely if you're finding one illegal invader in a particular business, you're probably going to have any number of them also in there. But I go back to the originality of comply with the law. It's as simple as that. If you comply with the law, then where do you kvetch later? In court, like civilized people do. I just got a ticket. I hate it. I wasn't doing 70 and a 40. Go to court. Present your evidence. And if you don't, shame on you. But that's how we handle that situation. If you don't like the U.S. codes with regard to immigration, get in touch with your Congress critter and change the laws. Until such time as that occurs, then ICE DHS will be out and CBP enforcing all these applicable codes and enforcing the warrants to be served upon criminal illegal invaders. Because the other thing that's cool about this is when you go in for warrant service and you find out where one is, chances are really, really, really good that you're going to find a shit ton of others that are in there as well, illegally from other countries. I don't really see how it's more complicated than that.
Under the pretense that they are here about immigration reform, and quit referring to these people as law enforcement. They are not law enforcement. We have law enforcement who do an incredible job. And to listen to great.
Okay, so how many people need to be told that ICE and DHS are not law enforcement? Let me see. The Arizona AG yesterday, Tim Walz yesterday. So what that means is if you read the underlying subtext, these aren't cops. And because you resist them or you bring a gun with you, then they can't do anything because, well, I just heard people say they're not cops.
Denigrate the work of our people who are out there cleaning up their mess. No.
Now, let me tell you who's not cleaning up the mess. I said a long time ago, Minneapolis PD consists of pussies and cowards, and the chief is a coward, and the captains and the lieutenants and the commanders and the sergeants are cowards. They're abject, total craven cowards. They don't deserve to be wearing a badge. They don't deserve to be wearing a gun, because they should have been there backing up DHS from the very get-go. Minnesota State Police are likewise cowards, because when we had riots, etc., at various places with the counties in which I worked, then we had coordination from the state police. In Califailure, it was CHP. When we had a riot, CHP would go in there actively and block intersections and arrest people for blocking intersections and making sure that the roadways and the streets were clear. And that's how you work together. With 3 law enforcement agencies, there is no consideration one for the other, and MPD and MSP are both cowards. They haven't done their jobs. And guess what? They're saying today that, 1,000 people took over the intersection. And Minneapolis PD disappeared. And Minnesota State Police disappeared. You absolute punks.
Don't have a lot of confidence that he himself will do it. But here's what I do have confidence in. There's a whole lot of Republicans, for whatever reason, cannot find their spine. But they might find the ability to know that they're not going to win another election as long as they live, unless they stand up for what's right and stand up for the rule of law.
And that's standing up for DHS. Quite frankly, I have to be honest. I think I've heard enough of this shit stick, and it's time to move on. I only have a couple more things to. I might be going into a little bit of overtime, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, if that's okay with you, Jersey Joe.
I'm starting to.
Are you okay? It won't. and Stephen L. Hall. I want to put this up while I can. Remember, I told you earlier at the beginning that this occurred in Minneapolis. Rioters attacked law enforcement officers, and one of them bit off an HSI officer's finger. Peaceful. But these protesters aren't rioters. They're
peaceful.
The missing finger right there. There's peaceful. There's a peaceful rioter. And there's another one. And there's the finger. Literally. The finger. So I wanted to make sure that I put that up as well. I may have only a couple more to make. Somebody made this on X, and they said, stop blaming the people who got shot or the ICE officers. None of them woke up today wanting to kill or be killed. Blame the people responsible. Tim Walz and Mayor Fry. If they had honored ICE detainers, none of this would have happened.
Yep.
Their rhetoric encouraging resistance is also encouraging these protesters to push the envelope. They are horrific, corrupt public officials who have relied on and provided payola to immigrant communities to stay in office. At minimum, they looked the other way while massive fraud was committed, and now they send Minnesotans out to FAFO to protect these immigrant communities. That is absolutely disgusting. No disagreement there.
It's
whatsoever.
Democrats as a whole. They started this with the open borders. They flooded this country.
Yeah.
And now when we're trying to... Go ahead.
I was going to say, Stacey is always astute with her observations.
I mean, that she said more in one simple solitary paragraph than I said at the beginning of the show during my BBS. I also want to put this in here. Looks like things have changed slightly. Minneapolis immigration crackdown, National Guard is activated. That was kind of news to me. And then this is the final story, but I want to have you guys weigh in. I said not long ago that the Democrats are going to shut the government down again. And here we go. This is from Red State. Schumer and the Dems ramp up things with an ugly move on DHS funding bill after patrol border shooting. Democrats just seem to want to keep ramping up the anti-ICE chaos and say that, you know what? We're not going to vote for the bill that includes Department of Homeland Security funding, period, for ICE, end of statement. So, gentlemen, I want to say thank you ever so kindly. Do you have any parting statements to make? How about Jersey Joe? Anything that you'd care to say?
As I was saying, the Democrats opened the border, flooded the country with illegals. They started this. Now we're enforcing the laws. They don't like it because they will lose congressional seats. They don't want the illegals out of there. So they refuse to work with federal laws and the federal officials. And they're causing this issue. Then when the shit hits the fan, they cry like little victim bitches. And I'm tired of being nice. I'm just getting tired of it. You don't fuck with the cops. They don't fuck with you. Plain and simple. And I hate to put it that way. If you don't mess with them, you don't go around assaulting people. You don't go around pulling guns. And don't tell me they disarmed him. Bullshit. Cops aren't just going to yell gun, gun, gun for no goddamn reason.
Stephen L. Hall, any final comments you may have?
The final comments I would have is follow everything. It's not just the illegals. It's not just the votes. It's not just the money. It's how they all interact together. And it's the connections that are the important thing. And that's why it's happening in Minnesota more than any place else, is because it's across the board and it's interconnected. And these are not isolated.
I believe they all dovetail. You're absolutely correct. Jersey Joe, where can people find you?
In my seat. Hold on one second.
Okay. While he
and you didn't interrupt. It's okay, Stab. I didn't take it that way. You can catch me on SHR Media and all of our social medias every Monday and Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm just almost speechless that this country has fallen this way, because people just don't want to follow the law. The same crowd that screamed for 4 years, nobody's above the law, now wants people above the law.
Yeah.
You're finding out what happens.
All right, Jersey Joe, thank you ever so kindly for being here. I appreciate it tonight,
No
sir.
problem.
And we'll see you Monday night.
Yep.
All righty. Ciao, sir. Stephen L. Hall, where can people find you and or your shows that you would like to have people watch?
Well, people can find me over on X at Stephen L. Hall, and they can find me at KLRN Radio every other Wednesday, 7 to 8 on the show Inquiry. And so far, that's all I have going at the moment.
All righty. Thank you so kindly, sir. Stephen L. Hall.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for your time. Thank you for staying up so late. Good night, sir. This is BZ. I'm going to be saying goodnight, ta-ta for now, TTFN. I'm glad that you were here tonight when we're talking about the ICE shooting in Minneapolis. And I'm going to wrap up with saying the obvious. This didn't have to happen. It didn't have to occur. Honda pilot driver, that didn't have to occur. Gun gun leftists, that didn't have to occur. None of it had to occur at all if it weren't for pushing by leftists. If you'd simply obeyed the United States Code, let DHS, CBP do their jobs, we wouldn't be here today. And we wouldn't be damn near rioting. Now, the big question is Minneapolis going to go up in flames again? I have no damn idea. You know, and things are going to change, of course, between now and, say, Monday. We're going to find out more things on Sunday. We're going to find out more things on Monday, Tuesday, next week, etc. This is just this is day one of what happened. So, as we all know, things are definitely going to change. In the meantime, thanks for watching me. Thanks for watching the SHR Media Network. Everybody, take care. God bless and be safe.